name's Lakshmi. Isabel is also in our group, as well as Piper and Tavin, who could not be here. So I'd like to start off the presentation. So in light of the Joint Institute for Strategic Energy Analysis's observation of the net energy ratio of large fields increasing in the past 40 years by 48 to 88, and in the interest of conserving extracted crude oil, we propose a plan which oil and gas manufacturers use extracted impurities and materials from their products in conjunction with contracted electronic systems to produce renewable systems like photovoltaics and wind turbines. Incentivized for integration into oil and gas producer systems by existing government tax credit and grant subsidies. These renewable systems power electric extraction motors, as well as other systems otherwise fueled by fossil fuels in the extraction, transportation, and refining of oil and gas companies' products. It would not be sufficient, however, for these elements of petroleum industry to rely on an electric partner to provide a renewable energy solution, as oil and gas producers are only guaranteed to receive significant government tax credit and grant subsidies from the PTC and ITC if they are the ones producing the energy from renewables or investing in the equipment. More specifically, the PTC is an incentive tax credit for any electricity generated using specific energy resources. Namely, according to the 2019 House Act proposal, biomass, solar, geothermal, wind, and landfill gas, expiring at the end of 2020, so only projects that started before 2020 qualify. With refinancing of the tax credit, the energy industry could stand to benefit greatly from this credit, with compensation set to 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Since the beginning of 2020, the Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency plus Renewable Energy notes that in 2018, the national average price of wind power purchase agreements dropped below 2 cents per kilowatt hour, with federal tax credits on wind energy at about 75% of that cost. Wind and renewable energy production proves far more affordable than companies sacrificing their own petroleum. Additionally, 26% tax credits on both solar and wind energy, as well as in Indian coal provided by the ITC, further enable companies to implement renewables, not as a choice, but the best choice. By doing so, sources of renewable energy gain a larger stage and hold throughout both consumer and producer energy markets, creating potential for larger shares of upstream energy in the future as oil and gas development shifts to secondary and non-conventional sources, which require more energy to facilitate.
The deployment of renewable energy is recognized as a tremendous opportunity that helps to diversify a country's skill base, boosts its industrial development, and support society's broad developmental priorities. And the skill sets in fossil fuel industries are transferable and adaptable to the renewable energy sector, increasing diversity and volume of technical employment in the petroleum industry. Furthermore, in the analysis prepared under the German G20 presidency, IRENA found that reducing global carbon dioxide emissions in line with the Paris Agreement would boost GDP by 0.8% in 2050, relative to a reference case. Although the same amount of petroleum could theoretically be produced, it would not be necessary to uphold the volume of revenue produced by its sale with the employment of renewables, while the extraction gig, pipeline, transportation system, or refinery would be rewarded in greater tax credits, reducing their total expenses. Ultimately, several countries with fossil fuel energy subsidies are attempting to reduce or eliminate the subsidy programs to reduce fiscal spending and promote efficiency. Renewable technologies can present a means of lowering costs by improving operational efficiencies, thereby dampening cost shocks from subsidy reform. While petroleum resources remain to meet demand for the foreseeable future, shifts towards marginal reserves increase the energy intensity of extraction operations. Thank you. Are there any questions?
All right, so let's get some questions from everybody. And while you're thinking of questions, both great presentations and really thoughtful in terms of what the future looks like potentially for renewables. And clearly the current subsidies to renewables make them very attractive. And as you mentioned, I think the concept, Lakshmi, of the 1.5 cent per kilowatt hour produced is really an extraordinarily attractive situation. And that's why so many utilities in the United States have almost all of their new investment, if not in some cases all their new investment for electrical production, has been in renewables because of those costs. One thing that there's a lot of discussion about is the fact that the oil and gas industry and coal, the fossil fuel industry, also has some very significant subsidies. And one of the really interesting issues would be, what would happen if all subsidies were taken away? And there's some who would argue that renewables would do even better than they do today.